What's happening to him now is one of the greatest tragedies that we're gonna ever read about, bruh. This is gonna be one of the greatest tragedies of hip hop, along with Pac's death, along with Big's death.
Federal agents took Sean Diddy Combs into custody. They placed Combs under arrest and lead him out the front door in handcuffs.
Gene Deal just dropped a bomb he probably wishes he could take back. Diddy's former bodyguard is straight up claiming that Diddy knew about Tupac and Biggie's murders before they even happened. And the craziest part, he might have actually planned them. The moment Gene realized he said too much is chilling, and now people are saying his life could be in serious danger. But that's not all. Wait till you hear what's happening inside Diddy's prison cell right now. Everyone's been tossing theories around for years about who really killed Tupac and Biggie, but this one hits different. Gene Deal isn't some random guy chasing clout. He was part of Diddy's inner circle back in the 90s. The man was literally right there when Biggie got shot. He saw every strange move Diddy made that night, and from the way he tells it, there was something off, real off. Now, with Diddy under arrest and being let out in handcuffs, Gene's finally breaking his silence, and what he's revealing sounds straight out of a crime movie. He's talking about things only someone on the inside could know, and it's sending shockwaves through the industry. Before we get into Gene Deal's wild accusations, you gotta understand the background first, because without it, none of this chaos is gonna make sense. I'm not even gonna waste time explaining who Gene Deal is or what Diddy's been accused of. At this point, everyone on the planet's heard about those wild Diddy parties. It's become a full-blown meme online. But let's rewind for a second and look at something way deeper, the chaos that was going down in hip-hop back in the mid-90s. Tupac and Biggie weren't just rap legends, they were brothers, tight like family, but things flipped fast, real fast. By 1996 and 1997,
said it himself. He said, I don't know how to talk to women. I don't know how to talk to girls. You understand? I said, you don't have to know how to talk to nobody. You're a millionaire. You got it. So he was jealous of Pac because Pac ain't have to do that. Pac had that aura, you know what I'm saying? And he probably knew how to communicate with women. And most women who he talked to that said stuff, said about it.
The East Coast versus West Coast beef had turned into straight madness. Rappers were picking sides, dropping diss tracks, and taking shots in interviews like it was war. The tension was so thick, you could feel it in the air. Then came the night that changed everything. September 7th, 1996 in Las Vegas. Tupac had just left a Mike Tyson fight when a car rolled up beside him and boom, he got shot 4 times. He fought for his life for 6 long days, but on September 13th, the world lost one of its greatest, Tupac Shakur, gone at just 25 years old. It was heartbreak across the globe. But the nightmare didn't stop there. Only 6 months later, Biggie Smalls was taken out too. March 9th, 1997 in Los Angeles. He was leaving a party when another car pulled up and opened fire, hitting him 4 times. This time, there was no chance for help. Biggie died right there, just 24 years old. Imagine that, a whole future ahead, gone in seconds.
They was there to spy on Big. In the interim of him being there to spy on Big, Jimmy Henchman told them that they finna show Pac, teach Pac a lesson, because Pac had owed him some money. So that's why he was up in the studio and was coming to the studio. Pac owed him some money. He was gonna work it off and get some money from doing a song with Lil Sean. And that's what that was about. But Pac was talking greasy to Jimmy Henchman, and Jimmy Henchman wasn't the type of dude that you talk greasy to, allegedly. Unless you 50 Cent.
So Diddy knew what was going to happen to Pac.
He knew Pac was about to deal with. Yeah, he was there to see it. He was there to see it. He wasn't only there to see Big them. When Jimmy Henchman told him that, he was there to see what's going to happen to Pac. He was there for that. Because had he not been there for that, he would have went up there in the office. He would have went to the studio or the studio session with Big them. He would have went to that studio session with Big them. He knew what room Big them was in. He didn't do that. He was there to see what was going to happen to Pac after Jimmy told him. And that's factual.
For decades, people have been asking the same haunting question. Who really set up these murders? The cops looked into it, but nothing ever came from their investigations. No arrests, no charges, nothing. The cases went stone cold, and for years, that's how it stayed. Everyone had their own wild theories, but real answers, nowhere to be found. That is, until now, because Gene Deal just started talking, And what he's saying could flip everything we thought we knew about these murders. He's connecting dots that even the original investigators missed. He's spilling details from private conversations that were never supposed to leave those rooms. And the things coming out of his mouth, they'll make your jaw hit the floor. So yeah, let's get into it, because Gene's revelations are pure chaos. He starts by dropping something that most people never even imagined. Diddy was deeply jealous of Tupac Shakur. And not just that usual artist rivalry kind of thing. This was personal, like real envy behind the scenes. See, Tupac had that magnetic kind of energy, the kind that made everyone stop and stare the second he walked into a room. He had presence, charisma, and confidence that couldn't be taught. When Pac showed up, people felt it. And that's exactly what made Diddy lose his cool inside.
Kirk Burroughs, he also said that, he feels like, Diddy was behind Pac murder.
Yeah, if Diddy played a part in that stuff, like he said, Kirk know where the money came from. I'ma say this. They tried to, if you talk about the Vegas trip and the whole 9 yards, Kirk said that he paid for people to drive out to Vegas. You know what I'm saying? He said he paid for people to drive out of Vegas. I was heavily with Bad Boy at that time. I don't remember that part of it. You understand? I don't remember that part of it. But if Kirk knew and he was paying for people to drive out to Vegas in the whole 9 yards, it's hard to hide $1 million, brother. You ain't going to cash that in the check cashing place. You signing that over to somebody. I said 1,000 times, and I'll say it 1,000 times again. Eric Von Zip showed me and my man Boom Dang, aka my man Slick, a check for $1 million. We don't know, and everybody trying to say, lying, talking about half of it got paid, 500. I don't know. I know when I asked him about, we asked him, do we ask? No, we didn't ask him. I know when he showed us a check and he walked away after he showed us the check for the $1 million, you understand? I asked Boone, I said, yo, Boone, when did he get a record label? He said, you know how Zip is. I said, when did he get a Zip record label? Zip had a check for $1 million. He said he got it from Barry Hankerson and Jimmy Henchman for his record label, Black Ground Records. So now, if that's true, we know Jimmy Henchman and Puff was cool. You should be able to trace $1 million if that's the truth. If that's the truth, you should be able to trace that, where it came from. Why did he get it?
And let's not forget the ladies. Man, they loved Tupac. He didn't even have to say much. Women were just drawn to him like he had some kind of magnetic pull. Now put that next to Diddy. Sure, Diddy had the money, the power, the fame. He was running Bad Boy records, stacking hits, and living large. But according to Gene, he didn't have that same it factor. Even with all his success, Diddy struggled when it came to women. He didn't have that smooth-talking charm or that natural confidence that Pac had without even trying. Gene says you could see it clear as day, the jealousy in Diddy's eyes every time Tupac was around. That kind of envy eats at a person, and according to Gene, it definitely did with Diddy. He wanted that effortless cool, that attention Pac got just by walking into a room. But no matter how rich or famous he got, Diddy could never buy that raw charisma that Pac was born with. Now here's where things start to get dark, because Gene doesn't think this jealousy was just about ego or competition anymore. He believes it went way deeper, like dangerously deep. Gene says this envy might have sparked something much bigger, something that eventually turned deadly. So let's rewind to 1994, the moment everything shifted. Anyone who knows their hip-hop history remembers the Quiet Studio shooting. That was the night everything between Tupac and Biggie fell apart. Here's how it went down. Tupac showed up to Quad Recording Studios in Manhattan to lay down some tracks with other artists. But as soon as he hit the lobby, things went sideways fast. 3 men in army jackets ran up, robbed him, and shot him 5 times. 5 times! Tupac barely made it alive. He fought for his life for 6 long days, but on September 13th, the world lost one of its greatest, Tupac Shakur, gone at just 25 years old. It was heartbreak across the globe. But the nightmare didn't stop there. Only 6 months later, Biggie Smalls was taken out too. March 9th, 1997 in Los Angeles. He was leaving a party when another car pulled up and opened fire, hitting him 4 times. This time, there was no chance for help. Biggie died right there, just 24 years old. Imagine that, a whole future ahead, gone in seconds.
We lined up parallel to where the doors they have to come out. So if they come out right here, the car's right there. They're right there. So then Big is taking his time because you know his fibular bones and his thighs are broken or whatever like that. You know, they fractured or whatever. So it's taking him a long time to come out. So they get out, Big gets in the car, everybody get loaded up. I said, come on, let's go. We ready to go. Puff is running back and forth like, yo, he'll see a girl, he'll go grab a girl. He said, yo, Gene, remember her, she coming to the party tomorrow. I'm like, remember her? What the fuck is you talking about, bro? I never seen him act like this ever, because he don't act like that. Because even in New York City, once Puff get in the car, he'll leave his mama. We gone, we out. So Puff is like looking, and if you see the cameras, you see him running back and forth, looking and everything like that. So I said, Big man, what we standing around here for? He said, that's your man.
For decades, people have been asking the same haunting question. Who really set up these murders? The cops looked into it, but nothing ever came from their investigations. No arrests, no charges, nothing. The cases went stone cold, and for years, that's how it stayed. Everyone had their own wild theories, but real answers nowhere to be found.
Parked on the side of the Peterson Museum. So when I said to Paul said we was ready to go, I said, all right, follow us. I tried to ride on the side of the car. Puff said, yo, Gene, what you doing? I said, I'm riding on the side of the car. I have my gun out. I'm on the side of the car. At the time, I'm 265. You know what I'm saying? I'm not the street 30. You know what I mean? So I was a little slimmer back then. So he says to me, Gene, if you don't get in this car, you ain't gonna never work for Bad Boy ever again. I said, man, how the fuck you gonna try to tell me how to do my job? He said, Gene, we don't need that look. We don't need that look. Get in the car. As I go to get in the car, this motherfucker reached down and let his seat all the way back. So now I gotta put my legs sideways. I'm like, yo, what the fuck is you doing? And so then Kenny said, you ready? He said, you ready? I said, Kenny, run the next 3 lights. Run the next 3 lights, Kenny. Kenny said, for what? I said, mother, run the next 3 lights, Kenny, or I'm gonna drive.
And you know, that is until now, because Gene Deal just started talking, and what he's saying could flip everything we thought we knew about these murders. He's connecting dots that even the original investigators missed. He's spilling details from private conversations that were never supposed to leave those rooms. And the things coming out of his mouth, they'll make your jaw hit the floor. So yeah, let's get into it, because Gene's revelations are pure chaos. He starts by dropping something that most people never even imagined. Diddy was deeply jealous of Tupac Shakur, and not just that usual artist rivalry kind of thing. This was personal, like real envy behind the scenes. See, Tupac had that magnetic kind of energy, the kind that made everyone stop and stare the second he walked into a room. He had presence, charisma, and confidence that couldn't be taught. When Pac showed up, people felt it. And that's exactly what made Diddy lose his cool inside. And let's not forget the ladies. Man, they loved Tupac. He didn't even have to say much. Women were just drawn to him like he had some kind of magnetic pull. Now put that next to Diddy. Sure, Diddy had the money, the power, the fame. He was running Bad Boy records, stacking hits, and living large. But according to Gene, he didn't have that same it factor. Even with all his success, Diddy struggled when it came to women. He didn't have that smooth talking charm or that natural confidence that Pac had without even trying. Gene says you could see it clear as day, the jealousy in Diddy's eyes every time Tupac was around. That kind of envy eats at a person, and according to Gene, it definitely did with Diddy. He wanted that effortless cool, that attention Pac got just by walking into a room. But no matter how rich or famous he got, Diddy could never buy that raw charisma that Pac was born with.
That night wasn't just another headline. It marked the official start of the East Coast versus West Coast war. The tension that had been bubbling under the surface finally exploded. The shooter was a man named Isaac Dexter, and later on, he confessed to everything. He admitted that a powerful music exec named Jimmy Henchman paid him just $2,500 to pull the trigger. Crazy, right? Back in those days, Jimmy Henchman was not a guy you wanted to cross. He had serious influence, deep ties in the music industry, and even deeper connections in the streets. When his name came up, people got quiet real quick. But here's where Gene Deal's version of events gets real spicy. According to Gene, Diddy was actually at Quad Studios that same night. Yeah, you heard that right. And here's the wild part. Gene says Diddy knew that Jimmy Henchman was planning to go after Tupac, and he did absolutely nothing to stop it. Not a word, not a warning, nothing. Gene claims that Diddy wasn't even supposed to be there for Tupac that night. He was allegedly there to keep tabs on Biggie instead, checking on his publishing deal and making sure nothing slipped past him. But while he was hanging around, Jimmy Henchman apparently made it clear what was about to go down, and Diddy just let it happen. If Gene's telling the truth, that moment changed everything, and it might explain why so much in hip-hop history still doesn't add up. Jimmy Henchman had made it clear Tupac was gonna pay for something he'd supposedly done, and Diddy, he heard everything. Gene Deal says Diddy knew exactly what was about to happen, but instead of stepping in, instead of saying anything, he just stayed quiet and let it unfold. No warning, no attempt to stop it, nothing. Now, just picture that for a second. You know someone's about to get shot, and you say nothing? You stand there and let it go down like it's none of your business? That's cold, real cold. Gene doesn't hold back. He straight up asked the question everyone's been thinking. Was it jealousy? Was Diddy's envy toward Tupac so strong that he didn't care what happened to him? Maybe he thought, if Pac's out of the way, that's one less star shining brighter than me. It's a dark thought, but when you look at how everything played out, it makes you wonder. The fact that Diddy allegedly knew what was coming and kept his mouth shut isn't just suspicious, it's downright disturbing. It paints a whole different picture of how far he might have been willing to go to protect his own image and power. Fast forward to 1996, Tupac's tragic death in Las Vegas. Things didn't just get messy, they got dangerous. That's when even more people started pointing fingers at Diddy. Kirk Burroughs, the co-founder of Bad Boy Entertainment and one of Diddy's closest business partners, stepped up with his own story. He'd worked beside Diddy for years, knew his moves, his mindset, his methods. And when Kirk spoke out in the Netflix documentary, The Reckoning, he didn't hold back either. He came forward with some heavy allegations, the kind that made everyone in the industry stop and say, wait, what? Kirk Burroughs didn't mince words. He straight up said he believes Diddy had a lot to do with Tupac's death. And according to him, the reason all circles back to that same toxic jealousy we talked about before. Kirk said Diddy's envy toward Tupac's success was out of control. It wasn't just competition anymore, it was obsession.
Got past the light and we got across the street. Tone, who was behind me, said, yo, somebody in the car pointing a gun at Big them. I goes to open the door. Fucking, next thing you know, you hear it say, pow, pap, 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 pap. Yeah, it's 5 or 6 cars, like, pap, 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 right? Fucking Kenny guns the car going forward. I said, Kenny, what the fuck is you doing? He said they shooting at Big. He said, we don't know who they shooting at. He then goes up the block, stops, and do this 3-point, something like that, U-turn, comes back. And as we coming back, we see the guy turning the corner from the corner. He was parked on the corner because there's no way he could have got on the side unless his car was already parked there.
By then, Tupac was untouchable. All Eyes on Me had dropped and was breaking records left and right. He was selling millions, topping charts, and ruling the game like nobody else. The world couldn't get enough of Pac, and according to Kirk, Diddy absolutely hated that. He couldn't stand seeing someone shine brighter than him, especially someone who had the respect, charisma, and love he always craved. But here's where it gets real wild. Kirk claims Diddy made a strange request around the exact time Tupac was killed. He supposedly wanted to rent multiple cars to drive from New York all the way to Vegas during the weekend of the Mike Tyson fight, the same weekend Tupac was shot. Now, think about that, a 40-hour drive across the country. Who does that? Nobody drives to Vegas when they can just hop on a plane, unless, of course, they're trying to move something that can't go through airport security. Kirk's story had people asking one chilling question. Did Diddy actually send people to Las Vegas to take Tupac out? And then there's the money trail. A man named Dwayne Keith Dave, better known as Keith D, has already been charged with Tupac's murder. And get this, Keith D has said publicly that someone offered him $1 million to kill both Tupac and Suge Knight, the head of Death Row Records. So now everyone's wondering, where did that money really come from? Because if Kirk's telling the truth, that unusual request from Diddy might have been way more than it seemed. According to the allegations, half of that $1 million bounty was supposedly handed over to a man named Eric Von Zip. Why only half? Because only Tupac was killed. Suge Knight survived. So, in their twisted logic, only half the job got done. But here's where things start to twist even harder. Zip Martin apparently never gave that money to the actual shooters. Nope, he kept it all for himself. And this is where Gene Deal drops his next bombshell. And honestly, it's chilling. Gene says Eric Von Zip personally showed him a check for $1 million. Not a rumor, not a story. He claims he saw it with his own eyes. Gene even asked Zip where the money came from, and Zip allegedly told him it came straight from Jimmy Henchman. But that's where Gene started connecting dots that nobody else dared to touch. If Jimmy Henchman handed over that money, then where did he get it? Did someone higher up pay him to organize the hit? And if that's true, who had both the cash and the motive to want Tupac gone?
Gene says there's only one way to find the real truth. Trace the money. Follow that paper trail from start to finish. Because if investigators can figure out where that million originally came from, Gene is convinced it'll all point back to one man, Diddy himself. This theory takes things from shocking to straight up dark. And the craziest part, we're still not done. Because after Tupac's murder, tragedy struck again just 6 months later, March 9th, 1997, the night Biggie Smalls was killed. Gene Deal was right there when it all went down, and the story he tells about that night will leave you speechless. Gene says that in the days leading up to that tragic night, Diddy was acting off, real off. He was paranoid, jittery, always looking over his shoulder like someone was following him. He couldn't sit still, and everyone around him could feel the tension. Something was clearly eating at him, but he wouldn't tell anyone what it was. Now sure, you could say maybe he was just being cautious. After all, they were in Los Angeles, the same city where Tupac had been killed just 6 months before. But according to Gene, this was different. This wasn't the usual kind of street smarts. This was full-blown fear, like a man who already knew something terrible was coming. Then came the night of the Soul Train Awards after party, and that's when Diddy's behavior got really weird. Looking back, Gene says all those strange moves Diddy made that night weren't random at all. They were calculated. Every little thing he did seemed like part of some plan, and it gives the whole night a dark, eerie feeling. When the party finally wrapped up, everyone started heading to their cars to roll out. Gene, being Biggie's bodyguard, was ready to do what he always did, protect his client. He told Diddy he was going to ride beside Biggie's car, gun ready, just in case anything went down. That's when things took a strange turn that Gene still can't shake to this day. And you know what Diddy did next? He threatened Gene. He told him straight up that if he didn't get in his car instead of riding next to Biggie's, he'd never work for Bad Boy Records again. Can you believe that? Your bodyguard wants to protect your top artist, your best friend even, and you threaten to fire him for it? That doesn't make any sense, unless you don't want that person protected. Gene said the whole thing felt wrong from the start. Diddy had never acted like that before. Normally, the second he got in the car, he was ready to dip, no hesitation. Gene even joked that Diddy would leave his own mother behind if it meant leaving a spot quickly. That's how he always operated. But that night, completely different story. Instead of heading out, Diddy was running back and forth between cars, talking to random people, flirting with girls, and acting way too casual for someone supposedly in a hurry. He even kept asking Gene if he remembered certain people and repeating weird stuff like, "She's coming to the party tomorrow, remember her?" It was bizarre, and Gene had never seen him act that way before. Diddy was stalling. Plain and simple, looking around nervously, checking his surroundings like he was waiting for something or someone. Even his own friends started noticing how off it felt. One of them finally said, "Man, what are we standing around here for?" Everyone could sense the tension, but nobody knew what was coming next. Now looking back, Gene says it all makes sense. Diddy wasn't just acting strange for no reason. He was stalling. He was waiting for the exact moment that the shooter could slide into position. Every delay, every weird conversation, every minute wasted, it was all about timing. Gene's convinced Diddy was making sure Biggie's car ended up right where it needed to be, and making sure he wasn't there to protect him when it all went down. That's not paranoia, that's calculated. When they finally left the after party, everything was lined up outside the Peterson Automotive Museum. Gene remembers it clearly. Diddy insisted that he ride with him, not with Biggie. Diddy's car was up front and Biggie's was right behind. Gene had his gun tucked under his shirt, ready for anything, but being in the wrong car meant he couldn't do a thing when the danger showed up. And here's the part that gives some chills. Gene swears there's no way that shooter's car could have gotten into that perfect position unless it had already been parked there waiting. Everything about that setup was too precise, too timed, too smooth. Somebody made sure every detail lined up, and Gene believes Diddy was the one pulling those strings that night. The shooter's car wasn't parked by coincidence. It was positioned exactly where Biggie's vehicle had to pass. The timing, the angle, the setup, it was all too perfect. This wasn't some random drive-by or spur-of-the-moment hit. This was planned down to the second. Somebody told that shooter where to park, when Biggie would be leaving, and which car he'd be riding in.
He stops right in the middle, right in front of Big's car. We stopped. Puff jumps out the front seat and runs around there to Big's car. All that shit running around the block. I ran down the block and shit like that. That's bullshit. When we got in front of the car, he jumps out the car, ran over to Big's side of the car. So now I'm behind Puff and I'm looking down the block and everything like that. Those girls who was right there on the corner talking to Puff and them, they had, talking to Big and Lil C's and them. I don't see them. The street is clear. Tone said, Gene, come on, let's go. Me and Tone hops back in the car and we try to take after the guy. Tone is trying to floor it, but it had one of those government chips in there, the car. So every time we get close to 100, it go all the way back down. So we can see the guy at the top of the hill. Oh, it was a top. We see the guy up at the top where he had to make, when he made a right. When he made that right turn, when we got up the top of the hill, we ain't see shit.
That kind of information only comes from the inside. And who had access to every one of those details? Diddy did. Right after the shots rang out, Gene and his partner Tone jumped into their car, hearts racing, trying to chase down the shooter. They weren't thinking twice. They wanted to catch whoever did this and bring justice for Biggie. But what happened next made Gene's blood run cold.
Their car, the one they used for security, had something strange installed, a government chip. This chip automatically capped the car's speed at 100 miles per hour. Every time Gene tried to floor it to catch the shooter, the engine cut back. The car slowed down on its own. They could see the shooter's vehicle just ahead, climbing a hill, so close they could almost make out the license plate. But as soon as they reached the top, the shooter had completely vanished into the dark Los Angeles night. Now tell me, does that sound like bad luck, or does it sound like someone planned for them not to catch that car? Gene couldn't wrap his head around it. Why would a bodyguard's car have a limiter that prevents it from going fast? That makes no sense at all. Bodyguards need speed to escape danger or to chase down threats. A limiter like that is a liability, unless someone didn't want that car to chase anyone that night. Gene says that moment changed everything for him. That's when he realized the truth might go way deeper than anyone ever expected. Gene says after that chase, everything about that night started haunting him. The whole thing just didn't add up. Not the timing, not the behavior, not the way the shooter disappeared like a ghost. He started replaying every moment in his mind, trying to figure out what he missed. And the more he thought about it, the more it started to feel like this was never just a coincidence. It was a setup from the inside. When the cops finally showed up, Gene says their attitude was strange too. They weren't acting like they were trying to solve a murder, more like they were trying to contain one. No urgency, no deep questioning, just quick notes and vague promises to follow up. It was like they already knew this was going nowhere. Gene remembers Diddy standing there, pretending to be in shock, but something about his reaction felt off. He wasn't panicking or emotional. He was calm, too calm, almost like he already knew what had happened before anyone said a word. Gene says that look on Diddy's face, that cold, blank stare, still chills him to this day. And here's the part that really messed with Gene. Right after the shooting, Diddy vanished. No explanation, no questions, just gone. He didn't stick around to talk to investigators or check on his team. He dipped out of LA within hours. That move alone made Gene suspicious. Who leaves the city that fast after their best friend and biggest artist gets killed? In the days that followed, Gene tried to talk about what he'd seen, but everyone around him warned him to keep quiet. People told him things like, "Don't get involved," or "You don't know who's watching." It felt like everyone was scared, not just of the truth, but of whoever was behind it. That's when Gene realized the silence around Biggie's death wasn't just fear, it was control. Someone powerful was making sure nobody talked, nobody questioned, and nobody ever got close to the truth. And according to Gene, that's when he knew this whole thing ran way deeper than anyone wanted to believe. After Biggie's death, Gene says the whole industry went quiet, like everyone suddenly forgot how to talk. The energy shifted overnight.
People who used to be loud and flashy were suddenly keeping their heads down, speaking in whispers, avoiding names. It was like everyone knew something but was too scared to say it. Gene started noticing things that made his stomach turn. People from Bad Boy acting nervous, phones ringing at strange hours, and meetings behind closed doors that no one was allowed to attend. It felt like a cleanup was happening, like somebody was making sure every trace of what really happened that night disappeared. And here's where it gets even darker. Gene claims that after the murder, Diddy started moving differently. He wasn't grieving, he was calculating. Gene said Diddy started signing new artists, pushing new projects, and acting like nothing had happened. No memorial meetings, no deep talks about Biggie's legacy, just business as usual. To Gene, that wasn't mourning, that was moving on too fast. But the moment that really broke Gene came a few weeks later, when he overheard a conversation that still haunts him. He said he caught Diddy talking in a low voice, saying something like, "Everything worked out how it needed to." When Gene heard that, his blood ran cold. He didn't know exactly what Diddy meant, but it didn't sound like the words of a man who just lost his best friend. From that point on, Gene knew he couldn't stay quiet anymore. He started writing things down, saving memories, piecing everything together, because he realized if he didn't, this story would be buried forever. He also says strange things started happening to him after he began talking. Random cars following him, phone calls with no one on the other end, and people warning him to let it go. But Gene's not backing down now. He says too many people have stayed silent for too long, and it's time the truth finally comes out, no matter who it exposes. According to Gene, the murders of Tupac and Biggie weren't just street beef, they were orchestrated moves in a much bigger game. And the person sitting at the top of that game, he believes it was Diddy all along. Gene says he's done running from the truth, because the truth doesn't stay buried forever. He's been holding these stories in for decades, watching people lie, twist facts, and rewrite history, but now he's ready to expose it all. Every word he said, every moment he's described, it all connects, and the picture it paints is darker than anyone could have imagined. He believes both Tupac and Biggie were victims of a powerful game, one where fame, money, and control meant more than human life. Gene says the real tragedy isn't just that two of the greatest artists in history were killed, it's that their murders were never meant to be solved. Too many people had too much to lose if the truth ever came out. Even now, Gene says he's being watched. He's careful where he goes, who he talks to, and what he shares. But despite all that, he keeps speaking up, because according to him, silence is how this whole thing survived for so long. What's crazy is how the same questions still echo all these years later. Who ordered those hits? Who paid for them? And why? The world has heard rumors, seen documentaries, and watched interviews, but no one's ever connected the dots the way Gene Deal just did. If what he's saying is real, it changes everything we thought we knew about hip-hop history forever. Gene's not trying to chase clout, he's trying to bring peace to two legends who changed music and culture for good. He says he owes it to Tupac, to Biggie, and to the truth itself to keep talking, no matter how dangerous it gets. So now it's your turn. What do you think? Do you believe Gene Deal's story? Was Diddy really involved? Or is this another chapter in hip-hop's most twisted mystery? Let me know your thoughts down below. This story is too big to stay quiet about. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, and drop a comment with what you think really happened that night. The world deserves to know the truth, and this conversation is far from over.